First of all, I want to congratulate you, Yoel, for a wonderful conference. I think that it's about time that Israeli newspapers, Israeli businesses, traditional businesses, banks, even established banks, and what Yifat Doron has been doing in Bank Leumi is fairly amazing, come to the international market in a big way, like so many of the startups that we have here, and that New York and Israel really need to work together in order to create some of the new models that exist. Existential innovation, to be or not to be. I don't want to be melodramatic, but for many of you, you know that the world is changing very, very fast. Our parents, the way that time moved for them, or our grandparents, is very different than what time worked for us. We live in exponential times. The world population has grown from 5.3 billion, and it's going to grow to 10 billion in a matter of 50 years. Data is doubling its capacity every year, and we need a new paradigm in order to deal with it. And the devices that we're using, it's unbelievable. 31 billion devices will all be connected in a matter of 2 years or so, and that means that everything is changing. John Chambers from Cisco, who was the CEO that brought Cisco in an amazing way forward and had a lot to do with what was going on in Israel, says that 40% of the companies, including on NASDAQ, where's Nelson, will disappear in the next 10 years. I actually think this is optimistic. I think that a lot more brands and companies will disappear in the next 5 years. What that really means is that if you're not going to innovate, if you're not going to look at your business anew, if we're not going to look at our business anew, even on the technology side, we're going to be obsolete. New players, new businesses, new technologies are changing almost every category of business, and the age of transformation is here. Whether it's automotive, whether it's communications like we saw in the last 20 years, whether it's finance, banks will not be the same in about 10 years' time, and things will change completely. I think the small businesses would rule. Today, small businesses still, with all the changes that are occurring, are getting still the very little attention of the big institutions. And what we're saying is that in order to transform, you absolutely need to collaborate. Because your discipline of business, or even discipline of technology, you cannot be comfortable staying where you are. And what, quite frankly, Israel, which has had a great run in the last 20 years in technology, we can't stay in the same place where we are. There were very few times in history where different disciplines of thoughts came together. You know, I'm a philosophy scholar. And when the time of Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and Archimedes, there were actually a junction of three major disciplines of thoughts that came together to have the breakthrough. It was a new form of government, yes, only for the few, that was called democracy. And as you said, democracy comes into question lately, both in the US and in Israel. Don't worry. Art form, and also philosophy and science. In years later, in the Renaissance age, Da Vinci and Michelangelo were operating at the same time as Columbus and Copernicus, and at the same time that they were making the breakthrough in art and thought, the world exploration discovered that the world is round, and actually that we are not at the center of the earth, but we are revolving around the sun. If we take the automotive industry, that Israel, some of the automotive players are saying Israel's playing such an important role, even though we don't produce cars, it's changing completely. Henry Ford talked about affordable cars and gave us the freedom to own a car and to travel wherever we want. But if we look at it, Henry Ford's car, Model T, was traveling in the pace of 20 miles per hour. When you come into Manhattan in the morning with a Maserati, you travel at about 9 miles per hour. So I would say that the freedom of owning a car is changing and needs to be substituted. It's not only that the automotive industry is changing in such a big way in the next 10 years like we've never seen before, but it's also that the head of Daimler-Benz says that his business is no longer to make engines that run on fuel, and that the entire business model is changing. Now, the first step that Mobileye was so important is to have the autonomous car, where somebody else will be doing the driving for you. But you can be stuck in traffic with an autonomous car, just like you are with a car that you're driving yourself. And so what is the new model? We are not going to own cars in about 10 to 15 years. And I know that a lot of you love your car. I had the experience of being elected to the Knesset and understanding that I cannot own the car that I want. And I have to be like every Knesset member. And that's a sort of a humbling experience. But what it gives you is the possibility that maybe it's not that important. Maybe the service model of having freedom is more important than the brand that you own. Imagine if you get up in the morning and you can dictate how much of your day you're going to travel in a car, how much of it you're going to travel in a first class or second class train, how much of it you're going to ride the bike, because that will determine part of your quality of life, because you will actually want to ride the bike or even walk and have your own latte, and people will know you when you get it and be part of the transportation. But in order for that to work, the automotive industry needs to connect with the smart city industry, with the big data, with artificial intelligence, and with a variety of disciplines that will make that possible. Cities that will not adopt a new form of transportation, that will change car ownership with the pleasure of taking you from one place to another in the highest level, will not be relevant cities. And I have to say that Israel is investing a lot in roads, but if a country or a city wants to thrive, it needs to invest in the highest form of public transportation and in the way that we bring the data together. WeChat, 1.1 billion registered account in China. Sometimes China was behind. Now China, in many ways, shows us where the future is. You know that in 1 minute, you have 14 million users. People read about 4 million articles. About $1 million of transactions is being made. And 7 new applications are launched every minute. If you think about it, the new services, this is texting. This is just texting. But if you go to China, you see that no grocery owner will sell you in cash. Everybody's working on WeChat, and then your identity card, and we know that the big brother is following us, but your identity card is going to be on your texting device, and the bank and the money transfers and the way that we transfer money and pay for things is also on the very same device. So if we want to look at how many and fun is an important aspect of a lot of things we do. And if you text with a Chinese and you see all the images and all the moods that they're able to move on from each other, it's fantastic. I'm sorry for this image, but this is the way a lot of the world's children look like. Food is going to change completely in the next few years. And Israel, who's been a powerhouse in technology and a powerhouse in agriculture, needs to join the revolution in food technology. We are not going to be able to eat the same amount of sugar and processed foods. We are not going to be able to have the same amount of starch. We will need to come up with new paradigm. And the food companies, which had no venture capital arms, all of them now have venture capital facilities, All of them are talking about coming to Israel. And in the Galilee, in Kiryat Shmona, Yachad im Galil Elyon, together with the Druze villages, and together with the Moshavnikim, and the Arab communities, we are creating one of the hubs that we call for other partners around the world in the food tech industry, and that will be even more revolutionizing than the cyber security effort that we have in the South. Yoav, who's heading the cybersecurity lab, don't take it personally. But food and health touches upon everyone. It's a big revolution. Israel and the United States need to work together in order to do it. Meat. We cannot sustain the planet by eating beef in the way that we do. The planet will not hold. It doesn't matter if you're a vegetarian. It doesn't matter if you are, you love animals, you don't love animals. It's not working anymore. We will need new ways to produce protein that are very different. In Israel, on Sunday night, there's a company who invented this great grasshopper protein, but it doesn't have to be a grasshopper. It could be Memphis meats or Mosa meat or real meat, people that are taking gima, part of the culture, and growing the meat without the cow itself. Most of these hamburgers still don't taste the way you'd like them to taste, but in 3 to 4 years, it will change dramatically. And the food tech industry is going to be one of the big revolutions of agriculture, food, and healthcare, because we're not going to be able to make drugs for $1 billion. Most of the drugs, the therapeutic drugs that we will make, will come from food. And what I'm saying is, New York, with its business leadership, Israel, with its technology business leadership, needs to merge together with other capitals around the world, if we're going to create not only the technology mavericks that we did 20 years ago and 10 years ago, but if we're going to create and take the financial industry, the healthcare industry, the entertainment industry, the consumer industry, and blend it with the cybersecurity, artificial intelligence, big data, mobile technologies, in meshing them together, that's Israel's role. And because we have a small country, most of our companies are international, and because we need the cooperation, a place like New York, or a place like Europe, or a place like China or the West Coast, we need to be working together to create the next model in order to create the disruption that we want to see. So what is our role in the financial community? Our role is to work together with entrepreneurs here, entrepreneurs in Israel, but also to connect the technology leaders with the business leaders in order to disrupt one business category after another to create some of the next big companies. It's going to be fun, and if you want to have fun, come this evening. We have a great meeting in Chelsea Market at 7:30 with a lot of young people from all nationalities, primarily Israelis in New York. And I think that having fun and being international is part of what we need to do if we're going to win. Thanks.